Thanks, Jimmy. All right, we'll go ahead and get started.
I'll go ahead and start. I'm going to introduce Pete Earls. I think everybody knows him. He is going to discuss, we had asked their firm to look at maybe restructuring our water rates rather than having a declining scale. We'll have something a little bit more modern time because I do think it's affecting our utility. And so he's going to do most of the presenting, and then I'll just kind of fall in back behind him on how that affects our budget.
Okay, thank you. What we did is look at all three: wastewater, stormwater, and the water fund. I'm going to leave the water fund till last because that's the most complicated. The other, so if you can find the one that says at the top, wastewater fund, it's got the big red streak on there. The red streak simply has to do with everything to the left of the red streak is existing. That's what's been going on prior to today. And everything to the right is just an estimate based on increasing rates and doing additional work. So what I did was get all the information I could and put it in here. We matched revenues and cost with what was prior. So you see 17 through 21. That's where you're at today. And if you look at the very bottom, you'll see that you've been losing money pretty consistently in your wastewater fund. As we look at what we need to do in the future, we have a lot of projects that need to get done. In order to do those projects, we got to have funds. So what we looked at is what would it be if we raise the rates 3%. You can see from 22 on, we raised it 3%. Down at the bottom, you can see your surplus, and that's based on doing a collection rehab of $400,000 a year, aeration project. When it says 34,000 to 400,000 every time, what we're looking at is doing some kind of a loan, and then you're paying it back and uniformly. The reason for that is if you try to do $400,000 worth of work each year, at the end of 10 years, you'll have done $4 million worth of work that you could have done in the first year for $2 million. I mean, that's just reality. It's more cost efficient to do a big project and pay for it than it is to do a whole bunch of little projects. And that's why I printed out your amortization schedule. And the reason I did that just, if you look at this, it's got several different possibility of loans from $6 million down to $2 million. And the reason I did that is KDH&E currently has money available for 1.35% interest.
Do we actually have that sheet?
It is a packet. It's got several sheets combined to it. Yeah, everybody should have it.
I got two.
It says amortization schedule on the top.
What is if you add in the fees that they charge, what is the
For
actual?
KDH&E,
What is the actual?
KDH&E charges a one-time 0.25% fee.
But don't they charge that over the life of the loan too? Past loans that we've had with them, there's a fee assessed on the amortization schedule.
Correct.
Okay.
So
so it'd be 1.55 then percent.
No, I believe the 1.35 includes their fee.
Okay.
I don't break their fee out. I just call it interest. You know.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, whose fee is this?
KDH&E.
This is a KDH&E, and I just mostly I did this to show you that for $400,000 payments, you can do a $6 million loan. And it's just kind of, and it's not saying that that's what you need to do. I'm just saying when you're looking at projects, with Michael produced all the projects that he some of them, it wasn't all of them, some of them that he needs done. And when we priced it, it came up to over $5 million. And so, to try to do one project a year, and you can do it that way. City of Hugoton bound determined not to borrow any money. And so they did water projects that way. Did $300,000 worth of water projects every year for 10 years. We could have done all of them for less than $2 million And at the end of 10 years, we'll have spent $3 million and got no more work done. And so when interest rates are cheap, it is cost efficient. Now, I don't know where you're at on GO loans. The city of Pittsburgh just did $6 million on GO bonds. Same kind of thing, but they just went to GO. The interest rate was 0.24%. Ridiculously low. But anyway, it's just so you start thinking about what we may want to do in order to get some projects done in a timely manner. So as you look down at the bottom of all of these, you'll see that we put in rehab work, aeration project, that's at $34,000 a year. Down the road, we threw in rehab wastewater treatment plant upgrades, and that's at $240,000. These aren't set in stone. That's just because when you look at it, you try to project, hey, what kind of dollars, what kind of costs do we have down the road? You know you have clay tile. You know you have a lot of work needs to be done in the sewer system. And so that's what that is. And so what we tried to do is, what do we need to do to try and get costs some money, basically, to pay for this stuff down the road, versus waiting and then having to raise your rates 10, 12% to try and catch up. There's a lot of cities, and when we get to that in a minute, that just write that in so that every year your rates go up by 3% or the cost of living, whatever is greater. And that's just automatic. So as a council, you don't have to vote on it every single year. But as a council, you can stop it anytime because you're the council. But it allows it then to continue. Because the other thing you have to realize is if you're going to give raises, if you're going to do anything for the people, the money's got to come from somewhere. And that's, unless you're going to raise property taxes, you've got water rates, sewer rates. That's where your money comes in, because you don't have electric, you don't have gas, and so you've got a limited source of income. You have no control over sales tax. You've put percentages in there to help do some things. Some cities put in a 0.5-cent sales tax for streets or 0.5-cent sales tax for this or that. But again, there's a limit as to how much you can do on that. You'll see this little sheet here. Yours isn't in color. Oh yeah, I think it is in color, actually. I printed that all in color. That one shows the sewer rates that prior to today. Did you find that? It's just a single 8.5 by 11 sheet. There it is. I know, we got so much paper.
I think it's in that stack right there.
Is it in that pile there?
Could be.
Probably be the very last one you look at.
Yep.
Probably. See, told you. All right, what that does is just show you where we're at, all the way from 91 to 2001. And you saw what happened when you don't raise rates. You see down there in 2000, you jumped at 34%. Then you didn't do anything, and suddenly in 2009, you had to raise it 15%, and immediately 11 raised it 10%. Then you started doing 3% at a time, and then you didn't have a giant raise. Now you skipped last year, or this year, I guess. And then I'm saying it makes sense that we go back to what you were doing. Keep it going 3% so that you can have the fees and the wastewater to do the projects that you need to do.
So you're saying the base charge, whenever you get your water and sewer bill, the base charge at this point in time is $22.79.
Correct.
So what is beyond base? What is $2.12?
That is based on the ordinance, and it's after so much usage.
Can't hear you, Susan.
Okay.
Can't hear you.
It's based on your water usage. And so for residential customers, they get an average, a winter average. For commercial users, theirs is based on their usage per month. And so it just kind of depends on how much water they're using.
So let's say they were using 5 times the amount of a residential, they're still only charged $2.12.
Beyond a certain gallon. And I don't know what that is just off the top of my head.
Oh, and I didn't bring that with me now.
Yeah, I'd have to go pull the ordinance.
Well, I do like the idea of raising a little bit every year rather than 34% one year. That would have been,
Oh, yeah, can you imagine that council having to tell people that?
yeah.
Do we know the breakdown of
Well,
our income based on base charge and the beyond base? Like how much of our revenues come from beyond base?
I did not break that down. We were trying to do that on water, and we got into a mess trying to figure that all out on water. So we did not do the sewer that way. But like you said, residential, theirs is based on 3 months and the average of that, and that sets their sewer rate. Commercial isn't like that. Commercial basically pays so much per 750 gallons. And then it goes up, like water goes up to 36,000 gallons and then 75,000, something like that, 15,000, 36 and 75. And they had 3 different rates. Sewer didn't do that. The sewer had a rate for 750 above, I think, 15,000.
So if we ever done analysis on whether, instead of just doing a 3 across the board, whether the beyond rate needs to raise 5% and the non-beyond can stay flat, or?
I have not done that. And that's something we can do. It just takes time. You get all the flows from everybody.
I might add that in his presentation, he has calculated in there a $10 infrastructure reconstruction fee, which would just be like a flat fee on someone's bill. And so that would generate, roughly $300,000 a year to help pay for your debt service if you were to do something like this. At the top, it's in pink.
I did forget to mention, on this same sheet, you'll see it in red coming across there. Instead of raising rates 3% every time, in order to do infrastructure, that was a deal that we looked at as a possibility of just $10 per meter per month. And that's ear tagged for rehabilitation work.
So that would be either or, you're saying? Or you're saying
This
that's-
is showing both.
No,
Yeah,
this
that's what I
shows
thought.
both.
Where at on this sheet you're talking about? You said you see in red.
The
That's
pink,
right
The
below
pink
here,
across the
all the
top.
way across.
Mine in pink.
You look at the wrong.
You're looking at the
Yeah,
wrong-
you're
Are you on the wastewater?
No, he's not.
the very
No,
top.
you're not on the wastewater.
How many meters do we
Sorry.
have?
I know, we got a lot of paperwork.
No.
There you go. That's the right one.
What were you saying?
In lieu of that, obviously, you can raise the rates higher.
I was just asking how many meters we have.
Roughly, water meters, we roughly have about 3,200, somewhere in there.
So you're saying on the pink, you're saying that you need to. That's an idea of raising each meter $10.
Correct.
So like if you look at a rural water bill, they have a $20, it's like a convenience fee, but it's just a water availability fee. And, but that's on every rural water account.
So this fee, the $10 would be in lieu of, rather than to raise rates, we just do a $10
No,
fee.
do both. I think
do
is what you're
both.
saying.
Oh, in addition.
In order to generate enough revenue to do projects, truly do projects, I mean, that's what you would have to do.
I'm assuming the $10 would be in conjunction with what his amortization schedule is.
Mhm.
That'd be the $320,000 a year.
Mhm.
In
Yeah.
a sense, really, I mean, it kind of makes sense when you talk about. I suppose the way I look at it was the people voted for whether they wanted a half-cent raise for the streets or 1 cent raise for the streets, and this would not go to a vote. This would be our commission deciding we're going to have some help to get all this infrastructure back up into
Yeah.
shape.
You're
So
running
we're
a
gonna-
business. This is a business.
Yeah, I will say, you talked about that commission had to do a 30% increase. Well, that $10 is a 50% increase.
Yeah.
So,
You're right.
Is it
Because you're
Yeah.
at 22.79.
Yeah, I moved like a 40.
correct.
Yeah.
And that's why I didn't add that.
$10
back
per
in.
month,
Your base charge really, in a way, goes to 33.47.
I thought it was a one-time hit at $10. You're talking
No.
$10 a month.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to ask, but the 218, the beyond base is flat rate for.
It's flat rate for, let me just go pull the
No,
ordinance.
Once it exceeds a certain amount.
Yeah, once it exceeds a certain amount of gallons of water used, then it goes to that rate instead of just staying at, you know,
Yeah, I
218 per volume.
yeah,
Oh, per volume. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Is it tier?
No, it's just two levels. It's got a base and then it's got that second tier.
And so the base goes away and the second tier kicks in once you exceed
Yeah.
that volume.
Yeah,
When you say it doesn't go away, you pay the base no matter what.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you add on the second tier. Okay.
is it, you said it's per volume, so it's a flat fee that's added on if you're past a certain amount of volume,
So
or
let's say
it
that
is,
you have 700 and you'd have to do it in gallons. So let's say the base is 2,300 gallons. So at 2,300 gallons, you're paying at the rate of 23.47. Anything beyond 2,300 gallons, you're paying per 750 gallons $2.18.
That's what, but it's per
that is per.
unit.
Per
750.
unit,
That's
So you
yes.
fill up your swimming pool, you're going to pay
You're gonna pay a lot of money, $300 or $400, right?
for
Well, no.
out of
Wait.
your neighbor's
Let's
hose.
talk about that. So residents that have swimming pools, it would not affect them in that way on the
Because they're
sewer
not paying
charge.
sewer.
Not on sewer.
Well, so people's residential users, their sewer rates are based on a winter average. So we're taking the months of, I think it's November, December, January, and February, and we're getting an average, and then that's what they're charged for the entire year. So it would never pick up that usage of the water use in the summer. So people that water their yards or whatever, they're not being charged a sewer charge for that, essentially, for that usage.
Yeah, I was just trying to think because you wouldn't want to ding them for the sewer if they're just putting 30,000 gallon in their pool or whatever.
Right, and you won't.
What if they did something like that in the winter? Is that and they could come to City Hall and say, hey, listen, my water bill's going to be extreme this month.
That's what they'd have to do.
Yeah. There would have to be, if there was like a water break or something,
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
leak. And a lot of times we adjust their leaks though. So,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that's a great thing that we do for the people is to adjust it when they have a leak.
Do you think, how hard would it be to get how many meters go beyond base?
oh no, that's not hard at all.
Okay, if you could get me that, and that way it kind of helps.
That'd be interesting to know. Yeah. Because I feel like we're looking at a fairly extensive, not that I don't think that, this is something that we need to look at, but that would be, what, $13, almost $13 increase
Correct.
for base rate.
Yeah, and the typical home would probably be okay with that, but there's going to be people out there that,
$11.50.
Mhm.
well, I'm just thinking of people
and
on
this is
fixed
just one.
incomes.
This is just one part that we're asking
Exactly.
for. You
And we're not
got
looking
3
at the
utilities
water.
here.
Yeah, and you may want to step that instead of $10 in one shot. I've seen them where they step it in.
I mean, have you seen it where they put it more towards
More
or even
towards the
beyond base, or raise the percentage more and beyond base? And we
Oh,
could.
sure. The percentage doesn't have to be the same.
Yeah.
It's just
Where you're going to ding those
More
people that you're going to ding, it's going to be your commercial industrial users,
Which is
heavy
good
users.
and bad, but I'm
Yeah.
thinking, we have a lot of low income people in town, and I'd rather, careful what I say, I'd rather ding the people that use more, that probably can afford more, than the people that never hit the base.
Right, I agree.
So,
But again, I look at everything out there, and I used to own a car wash, and I'd be really wicked mad if I was, getting dinged harder because I had a business at 75 cents and hard enough to, maintain as it is.
But is it fair
Yeah.
that you're getting it at a discount either?
Absolutely, if I get anything at a discount, it's fair.
that's on the water. On the sewer side, everybody uses a sewer system, and every sewer only runs so far before it runs into a collection system, and that collection system runs on down to the sewer plant. And so, when you look at a sewer and look at the base, that's, everybody's got the lines are bad all over town. And we can pick and choose which lines we're going to fix and charge just the people there that are using that line for that. That's not realistic.
Right.
At the same time, we haven't fixed a lot of lines. We've been trying to do some things, but we're way behind schedule. And so if we're going to try to be fixing these things, how are we going to do it?
Right.
But, at the same time, stepping it in is not an unrealistic deal either.
and for me, I don't know if I just think backwards, but you think is $400,000 a year a reasonable amount to get done what we need to get done? Because to me, I think we
It's
need
a
to figure out
start.
what we need.
If you look, yeah, that 400,000 went out there for about 5 or 6 years, and then it jumps to 800,000
Right.
because basically we're looking at another project down the road. Because yeah, just the ones that Michael came up with was 5 million, and that was just a touch of what we need to do, and that doesn't include the wastewater plant.
Yeah, well, tell me how we're gonna get our work done at 400,000 if we got 5 million to do.
Because that's the payment.
That's the bond
On
payment.
a bond. That's the payment on a bond.
So
Basically,
we would
all I'm
issue
looking
$6
at.
million in debt this year to do $6 million worth of work, and then the bond payment would be the 400,000.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. Is saying that we're going to do this work, take a loan out for it, unless you're going to dig in your piggy bank and borrow us the money.
And,
But
and my concern with that is if you go to geo bonds, you better have your rate structure in place before you go out for your geo bond, because S&P will not approve this. You will get a horrible rating because you don't have enough revenue to support your
Right.
debt.
Absolutely, and that's true with any loan. You've got to show how you're going to pay it back. And I don't know where you're at on geo debt or overall debt.
This would
that
be.
applies. I mean,
It won't apply because it's a utility,
yeah.
so it won't go against your geo debt.
But honestly, that would be a better route
Mhm.
based off rates, wouldn't it? I mean, that
Yes.
would save.
So we've got an estimate of $71 million to redo our sewer sanitary system. Michael gave that, you gave that to us last year.
I'm not sure where 71 came from.
I'm sorry.
No, that was just my fee.
Well, that was a number that you gave us last year, Michael, was $71 million of work that we need to do to bring our sewers up to standard.
No, all we can do is the worst case scenarios and continue to work on those, because that's like the city of Pittsburgh. We came up with 120 million when the state said they wanted us to stop the infiltration. It's just not realistic. It's 120 million dollars to try and fix the sewer lines throughout Pittsburgh. And we told the state, that's fine. You give us 100 million and we'll cover the other 20. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. And so all you can do is step it through, line what you can line, fix what you can fix as we go through. And it's obviously a long-term deal. It's been a long-term in. Those clay tile have been in for 40, 50 years, and you're not going to fix them overnight. That's just not realistic.
Well, I think Michael was forecasting, when he gave us those numbers last year, 71 years. That's not realistic.
It's not, but at the same point, you can't afford to pay $71 million to
No,
fix something.
I'm totally agreeing with
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, and it's no different than your streets. I mean, if we tried to fix every street in town the way we'd like to, it's not going to happen.
No.
So all we can do is pick and choose. And the bottom line, though, is we've got to have a source of funds to start that process.
Will this give us that source of funds?
Right, and that's
Well-
what I'm looking at is, okay, how do we get to that source of funds? And unfortunately, it does mean raising rates. But you have to realize, like you said, you are a utility company. And as a utility company, you've got to fix what you have and be able to service your clients, which are the citizens. And just like KP&L or I guess it's not KP&L anymore, Evergy, they raise rates, and I don't think they asked me whether they could or not. And they don't care whether you're on the fixed income or otherwise.
True.
They raise the rates.
Well, I think, we've always had the authority to raise rates to make the work have done with the rates. If our rates aren't high enough, we need to raise them, just like you're doing.
Right. I mean, the other
And-
choice is your property taxes, and that's your other choice is raising your, your percent against property taxes. Because you don't have a lot of choices. You don't have a lot of income sources.
Not enough.
Unless you're gonna play the lottery and hope for the best. But
If you walk me through this again if you can, and I'm probably asking ignorant questions, but so you borrow for a $6 million project. You pay it off $400,000 a year for
20 years.
20 years. And how does that tie us up in terms of moving? How often can we restart a new project? Or
That would depend on how much income you have coming in.
and that's
I mean, if you look down at the bottom,
you
you can see what happens with your collection. You see that you're collecting money. You go from 600,000 today, 5 years from now, you have 2 million in there. What that allows you to do is in the future, you can do a 6 million.
You're looking at the reserve fund right now.
That's right. We're not, okay, let me back up. Reserve fund is what you actually have in your funds.
Right.
Okay? She takes it, puts it in a project fund. Yeah, I don't need that. What you have as the first line, you see surplus or deficit. That's per year. That's what's happening each and every year. What's in the reserve fund is what money you have in a fund called sewer.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens to that fund? Prior 17, 18, 19, you see you're spending money out of that fund. You had 1.3 million. But because your fees, basically your income was so much lower than what you spent, you lost 300,000 to 400,000 every year. So you went from 1.3 million to 700,000 in 3 years. And if that trend would continue, you wouldn't have any money. Down below is what they call a minimum reserve. The minimum reserve is 3 months, saying something happens and we don't get any money in for 3 months. We can still function for those 3 months. So that's what we call a minimum reserve.
What is the recommended minimum reserve?
3 months.
That is
Based from state law?
No, there's no state law. There's no, basically it's accountants that come up with that.
Right, but you're also looking at loan. Would that factor into your loan availability?
Well,
or
it shows
plus?
that you have funds and that you're not bankrupt. You're not running on a shoestring. A lot of small towns literally do. They income versus expenses. Half the time they can't pay the bills for 2 months until somebody pays their bills. You know, and you guys aren't in that category. You got good, but what happened, you can see, is you were spending all your reserve, what I call reserve. So we have to stop doing that. So once you build up that reserve, now you're ready for another project. Maybe it's a $6 million project, but you got 2 million of it in the bank. So now you don't have to borrow 6 million. You only got to borrow 4. You know, and so that's the idea, is that you build that reserve up so that you have money to do these projects without having to borrow it all every time.
And just spitballing here, and I know there's a lot of variables, but currently we only have one major water line going eastbound to the east side of town. And Earl's Engineering, not you specifically, but some of our engineers have recommended that we need a separate line in the event that is no longer functional. What would
You're
a
getting
project
into the
like
water
that
service.
cost?
We have to talk sewer first.
Okay.
But yes, you're right. That goes into water projects when we get into water. You've got the same problem in water. The problem is that we haven't been repairing lines. When the first time I came down and sat with you and Pete, the first thing you told me is we got a whole bunch of old water lines, cast lines, that are terrible. But we've got nothing in line here to do any water projects. So when we get to the water, that's another thing that we have to look at. And that's the problem. You know, he brought up sewer, storm sewer.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. You did a study on storm sewer, and it listed millions of dollars worth of projects. But you don't have millions of dollars. In fact, you were building money up, but you took money out of it to pay for other stuff because you were short other locations, other places.
When you say other locations, you're talking we're short in whatever else we wanted to do expenditure wise. We robbed from Peter to pay Paul.
That's correct. That's
Right.
correct.
Right.
Right. But we can't do that.
Yeah, that's what we're
But
saying.
that's what we did.
That's what happened in the past, and we're not
That's
doing
right.
it.
And so, but that's why we got to build money up in the funds so that we can do projects that we know we have out there.
So just so I got it straight.
Understand, this is just my suggestion. You guys make the decisions.
Right.
This is just that.
So 2021, we're looking at the surplus and surplus deficit and reserve fund.
Right. So
And you got-
2021, you guys,
So we have $681,126
yeah, you're
and some
going to lose
change.
about $150,000 this year.
Okay, so then you go to 2022, and your suggestion, and that is it ends up at 972,000, and that is if we increase.
That's based on the increases that I suggest and the spending. You notice that I've got a $400,000 collection rehab in there for next year.
Okay,
We may not
so
do that.
collection
That's why I
rehab,
say all that adjusts according by what we end up doing on
Right.
income.
right? So $400,000 collection rehab, is that a fancy word for saying repairs?
That's correct.
Okay, so you're saying we could do if we raise the rates, we could do an additional $400,000 worth of repairs and still have $972,000 in our reserves.
Correct. Because what you're going to do is you're going to make $300,000 that year.
Right, right. And the next year we'd do another $400,000 worth of repairs, and we'd still maintain we have 1.48 million, and we
Right,
continue to build.
Yeah, in a way. I mean, I'm suggesting you do a chunk of repairs
Yeah,
and
so-
pay for them.
So
Well, that's exactly right. That's what I'm saying.
But you're right.
Every year we're going to spend close to $500,000 in repairs, but yet our kitty is going to continue to build. We're going to take in, say, an extra $1 million, and we're going to spend half of it doing repairs.
That's correct.
But the 400,000 reflects your estimate of loan payment after we borrowed.
That's correct.
To 10 million or
I
whatever.
mean,
it was.
I threw that in there to,
Yeah.
just
Sure, the amortization.
had that in there, and this comes out to a payment of $345,000.
Well, at the end of the day, though, money's still money, whether we borrowed it or not.
That's
we're,
right.
We're still taking in the $400,000 to
We
make
just
a
got to pay
payment.
it back.
Right.
That's right. That's right. And that's why I say these are all adjustable by what you decide to do. Say you only decide to do $5 instead of 10. Well, that's going to cut the amount of money we bring in. We may not be able to do the 400,000.
Has there ever been a better time to borrow money than right now?
No.
I mean, if you're going to do it, now would be the time to do it.
Right. And like I say, when they did a GO bond for 0.24%, I about fell over. I mean, I'd like to get that on
Basically
my house.
free money.
Yeah. Well, at one time they were talking. I had heard they were talking about doing negative interest. I don't know if you heard about that, but at one time they were.
A while back, yeah.
Yeah, they were talking about negative interest. They were going to pay you to borrow money. I said that I would do that and then reinvest it in their bank, and just make money.
Borrowed again.
Yeah, borrow it again.
So, okay, so that's the wastewater fund on the grants.
Well, let me ask you one question on that. When we get down here to 2026, that 400 goes to 800,000.
Right.
Is there a reason for that?
I assume we're going to do another big project.
Okay, so we're going to be doing that same project plus another one.
That's I'm hoping that, like you said, we got $70 million worth of work to do.
Yeah.
Well, this is, so about every 5 years, I'm hoping we can do a project.
And not
Right.
necessarily a loan. You're talking about that's what the surplus is for and just pay cash.
Yeah,
At least part of it.
Part of it, yeah.
Part of it, and then loan the rest of it.
the
So
extra.
that's what
would be-
I'm saying. Now, I didn't deduct that, but that's why you build it up, so you can spend it. I mean, I don't expect you to keep $2 million in the bank and then go ahead and borrow money. That doesn't make sense either. So that you want to build it up so that if it's still a $6 million project, now maybe we only borrow $400 million and take $2 million out of the reserves.
Where is your reserve fund coming from?
That's your funds that you have. You don't call it reserve.
Capital.
You
Capital
call it
improvement?
capital improvement.
Well, but at the end of 2021, those dollars will not be there. It will be zero.
Now, you told me, okay, the 1.3, 980, 682, and 827 are directly from what you told me we had in whatever. You don't call it a reserve fund.
No, we call it our capital projects fund. Yeah, it's just wherever we do all of our capital projects. So, okay, I need to look at the numbers a little bit closer so that I understand where everything's going.
Yeah, because each wastewater, water, and storm sewer, you have X amount of dollars in those funds. You don't keep them in wastewater. You pull it out and put it in something else.
Mm-hmm.
Other cities, we call it a reserve fund.
That's what it is for us too. But it gets spent down at the end of the year because we're doing projects.
No.
Well,
You
that's what
always-
it is for us.
You always have money. Your sewer fund isn't zero at the end of the year.
No, we have 3 months of operating cash in our sewer fund. That's what we have.
And our capital improvements is separate.
Yeah.
Right, I don't put that in a separate account. But, right, you're 3 months down below, but you have a certain amount of dollars that I call reserve, that you're calling capital improvement fund, but it's not just the money for capital improvements, it's what you have in,
But we don't have
call it
that.
reserve.
We don't have $681,000 in reserves. We don't. We don't have that.
Your bottom two lines, your reserve fund and your minimum reserve,
are the same thing.
same thing.
Yeah,
So
okay.
what you're calling reserve fund is what you're calling our,
Capital improvement.
Yeah,
which you're calling our 3 month reserve.
Susan,
fund.
you'd still have the 3
Okay.
months, right?
Yeah.
So that right there is the 514. But Earl, are you saying we should have the 514 plus the 681?
No.
The
Okay.
514 is simply a minimum to show you what,
Right.
we
That's
don't
what
want to
3
go
months is.
below.
Okay.
Right.
That's all.
That's
it
what
is.
I was.
So you're
that's
saying
what
that
I
we
was
do
making
have
sure.
that,
Yes, we do have that.
but we're not having 1
No,
2
you don't
million.
have- and I did say, yeah, I'm saying you have 681,000,
Right.
And the recommendation is 514.
the minimum.
Minimum.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
So we're back on track.
Yeah.
You started to scare me a little bit. Everybody
Well.
yelling at each other. That's my job.
So now that I wound you all up, let's go to storm sewer. Stormwater fund is the one that has just a partial page. We're gonna do water last because that's even worse. I know, we got a lot of papers.
That one.
So you got the stormwater.
That's one.
Oh, okay.
It's this one.
Thank you. The same thing, if you look at the red line, previous years, future estimates.
So reserve fund and our, it's the capital, right? In all
Yeah,
of
the
those?
reserve funds are,
Okay. And then we have, so just to make sure I'm clear on that, the reserve fund in the way that we're looking at it in our other budgetary forms is our capital improvement fund, and we do have that minimum reserve for that 3 month expense, correct, Susan? Is that what you're saying?
Mhm.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood that before I started running numbers again. Thank you.
What's the minimum reserve calculated from
it's basically 3 months of expenses.
of expenses?
So if you look at your total expenditures,
I'm sorry, it's written on there. Never mind. I got it.
So why?
well, that doesn't
What's
make
the
sense.
difference between 2020
Yeah,
and
that's-
2021?
Nothing
think so.
transferred to capital outlay.
Huh?
So it should be 3 months of our total expenditures before that.
In 2020, we must have had either a number or something. We had a big transfer to capital outlay.
If you look up there in transfer to capital outlay, 798,000 being transferred in 2020.
So what happened then?
You had a bunch of money built up, and so we put it over in capital outlay for projects. It's still sitting there.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
So we can spend that?
On stormwater projects, or you can transfer it to another fund.
Well, we have to have some engineer, which is what we're working on.
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
So we have 800,000 to transfer stormwater capital improvement.
That was a one-time transfer.
So we could put that in the sewer fund or water fund or anything we wanted to do.
Or we can
No,
do
it's
stormwater
just-
projects.
It's just for stormwater.
No, you can make a transfer.
We can make a transfer, but we made the ordinance.
No, it does
No.
not cover that one.
Okay. But I'm just saying we cannot transfer unless we were to make a vote to,
Right,
to
correct.
transfer, and that's what I was trying to say.
Yep.
But it can happen. It's not automatically set that way.
Okay. You, as a governing body, can make that decision.
Well, I personally would dispute that since the stormwater fund is made a part of the wastewater fund. I think that the requirements of being used for that fund and for no other purposes would apply to that. That's my feelings. But that's neither here nor there. We can go from there.
Are you gonna walk through this?
So what I looked at here, you see down there, you see stormwater project, $3 million for 20 years. That's where the $200,000 payments came from. Starting in 23, based on raising the rates by 3%, you see you gotta, actually, we still lose money for the next 4 years before we start making money again, just on the 3%.
And this is a 3% increase because it says assume a 2% increase per year.
On any of the expenditures, and I should have said that before, I have to make some kind of an assumption that the expenditures aren't going to stay the same. So I assume a 2% increase on expenditures a year.
Okay. So the other ones are assuming that the 3% increase in stormwater rate.
Right. And so you see that 3%, and once you start spending money, I skipped a year, and still we didn't accumulate enough money not to lose money for several years, even increasing it 3% a year.
Well, 3% of $8.40 is not very much.
No, that's the problem. Yeah.
So I think we'll never go anywhere with that, with the 3%, when our materials and supplies and labor is going to cost us 3%.
So what do we do?
Well,
Just jump into $10 like the other one?
I will say with 3%, we've accumulated $800,000 for capital outlay. So it generates something. If we have $800,000 sitting there for work.
Well, yeah, but you take 3% of $25 is a whole lot more than 3% of $8.
Well, right. What I'm saying is
the base charge is
right. What I'm saying is maybe our base charge was high enough already. If we have, or we weren't doing enough work.
We
Yes.
weren't doing enough.
Yeah,
We
I mean, if
weren't-
we
That's
have
the problem.
And to me personally, I would spend it instead of worrying about how to get more money in everything.
Spend what we have?
If we have 800,000, we need to work on what projects. But I mean, that's just me. But I agree with Pete too. 3% of that's 24 cents.
Yeah.
So
That's right. That's why you don't see it increase much. 260,000 to 268,000, 276, 284. You're not raising a lot on the stormwater fund. So that's something you have to look at is that increase
Yeah, I think we should
pretty
take
minimal.
hugely look at that $8.40. That doesn't get us anywhere.
is that charge the same for how is stormwater charged? Is that the same fee for everyone?
No, it depends on pervious.
Lot size.
Mm-hmm.
So is 840 the minimum
That's a residential.
residential?
I don't think so. I think it's 4.
So when you did this, this also estimates in borrowing $3 million up front in order to do some larger project. Is that what I see?
Right.
So if we've got 800,000, do I understand? So right now we currently have around 800,000 in a reserve fund to spend.
Yes.
Yes.
I did not understand.
So do we
But
need to, so can we borrow more?
Sure.
I mean, does that get us any place in terms of rate control or rate differences, or make a difference in our rate estimate if we use
You're not going to get a different
600
rate.
600,000? I mean, in terms of your estimation for how much we should change the rates. I'm not talking about loan rates. I'm talking about
Oh, I see. Raising the rates. How much we can accumulate.
too many rates in this conversation. But, so if you spend 600,000, you borrowed, I don't know, you borrowed 4 million instead of 3 million or something.
What would?
I mean, it's just, and I guess take it completely off track. I'm just curious of what you.
So your payment's 230,000 instead of 200,000. You know, and so
But you're reducing.
what you may want to do is look at and the problem is when you look at raising rates, you really have to look at all three deals as you're raising, because you don't want to. You're going to jump water and wastewater and storm sewer, so maybe you do 4 or 5% now, and then over several years raising it at 5% instead of 3% to get that money built up a little faster, and then do 3% on after that. But like I say, you got to be careful, because you got to look at if you raise everything which we're suggesting, you also then have to look at what's each person's fees going up. It may only be $5 or $3 for this one, but it's $10 here and $20 there, and suddenly they're up $35, $50 a month. So,
And to me, it seems like we're going at it backwards because we're just talking about raising money, but what do we need?
well, but you have a storm study that shows you need a bunch of stuff.
And in every instance, we know we need at least, depending on how you want to attack it, whether it's $6 million all at once and pay a
But
a geo bond,
like for
or
this, for stormwater, I mean, what are our stormwater projects that we need? How much do they cost?
we've got cost estimates off the storm
And for
water
me, before we
study.
talk about increasing all that, I would like to see the numbers of what plans we have before we just talk about raising fees
Okay.
to a point. I mean,
Well, I mean,
Have you not
Yeah.
seen?
it helps, yeah.
Okay, I thought maybe we had already given the stormwater study to you.
Maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a stormwater study out there that shows a
Yeah.
lot of different projects,
Yeah.
It does.
and that's kind of what we went off of. Now, to prioritize it, it's not prioritized
So the one I
per
saw
se,
was
but
like 4 of them. Is that right, Pete? Is that the one that has like 4 different big projects?
Yes.
Margrave over by Bob Jackson.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's at least 4 that
Okay.
that have not been done. Parts of some of those have been done.
Yes.
pieces and parts.
Parts of that Bob Jackson thing has been done, but it's on the far
do we
end.
have a
So-
dollar estimate?
Right.
for-
So again, on the stormwater one, you have, depending on the impervious area, which is probably not super accurate in our system. That was one of the things that we were going to attack and audit. But staffing has not allowed for me to be able to do that. But basically, we need somebody from codes to go out and measure and make sure that we're charging people appropriately, because it goes anywhere from $4.80 to $89.56 per month.
Is this anything? Does it have to be feet on the ground, or is anything GIS can do?
It could be GIS. Yep.
Is there companies out there that would?
Oh, there's guys that fly it even, but if you got halfway new maps, that's the biggest trick with any system. You can pull anything off of it and then just run scales, and that's close enough. You're not trying to get to the perfect square foot.
But again, who's going to do that?
The same people that haven't done this, I guess. I was saying if we were going to do it, I didn't know
Yeah.
which way.
Yeah. Because that was one of the things that as I was going through, I discovered that there was probably some things that weren't appropriately being charged, as well as in 2020, when the rates were put in the system. Actually, it was 2019 when the rates were put in the system for rural water. They were put in incorrectly, and so we were not collecting enough revenue off of rural water. They would not like to hear that, but that was fixed in 2020. So just to kind of give you some, we're trying to clean up things a little bit at a time.
Internal audits we can do instead
Yeah.
of just raising fees.
Absolutely, yeah. So that increased your revenue a little bit, and you can kind of see that in the numbers.
Well, and part of the push, of course, is you're coming up on budget time. And so that was part of this for you guys to kind of look at this before you decided on budget, where you may want to be. I mean, ordinancing can come afterwards, but as you figure budgets, we wanted to get you an idea of what we think it'll take in order to do some of the projects that you all kind of let us know that you want to do.
Sure, be nice to stop piecemealing the project and have a set plan that you've engineered to do moving forward. If we're going to borrow, we're going to have to do that.
That's correct.
So really with stormwater, I think unless we have a clear picture of what projects we're looking at in the next couple of years to be able to justify an increase, how many dollars do we need over the next few years? Or can we look at a stair step that happens a couple years down the road, that starts a couple years down the road, or I don't know, or lower and then stair steps up by utilizing the dollars that we already have, the $800,000 that we have with the projects that we're looking at. You know what I mean? What is the gamut of the
I think it would be
projects that we have?
prudent for us to look at, no matter what utility it is, to always look at a 3% increase, 2 to 3% increase, because your cost of services and goods are going up by that amount at least. And so, if we could at least just have that discussion
Mhm.
and then come together with a good plan of projects, and say, okay, this is what we're going to have. And we have until the end of the year that we could say, okay, here's what we have scheduled. Here's some big ticket items. They could give us some engineer estimates. And then, you could make this decision later on and we could do a budget amendment. But for now, when we have our budget discussion, I have to say this is all we have left for capital projects because this is all we're generating in revenue.
Right.
To me, it seems weird that your 3-month minimum reserve includes your stormwater, your projects. The projects cost, they do not.
That's why
Now, that's something Susan and I need to get with, because I think
Because that would be only the.
I don't consider it project money.
Mhm.
This is money you've got.
Yeah. I mean, right now, we're in a surplus of 100 to 140 a year.
Mm-hmm.
And our 3-month reserve is 37,000.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
we're
exactly.
we're running 10 months reserve.
Yes.
So
Yes.
stormwater's sitting good.
Yes, we are. This fund isn't, I'm not super worried about this fund until we start talking about projects and saying, okay, we want to do this project, but you still could do a project and pay $100,000 every year and still have enough money, And I'd have to run the schedule on like $1 million project or something.
And it is realistic that one major project could wipe out $700,000 just like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, very good.
So.
Especially
And-
that one that Pete's talking about over there that Bob Jackson's running through there. There's a lot of work to be done there.
And I don't know if you guys can see, I laid at the table kind of some budget projections there as well. And so I have scheduled every year to transfer about $100,000 into your capital improvements fund. And we still have a carryover of $130,000. So we could actually put more than the $100,000 that's scheduled there. But I like to be a little bit conservative. You can always do a budget amendment to spend those dollars if you need them.
We're going to spend them.
Well, I like the $6 million figure.
That was for wastewater.
He likes it for stormwater too.
I know.
Susan, which form are you looking at?
It says
3 lines.
stormwater, and it says 719. It says stormwater right here.
Doesn't say water there, huh?
No, there's a water one, there's a wastewater, and there's a
Okay.
stormwater one. Okay.
Tell me again, I'm sorry.
So,
What are you looking at?
so the transfers down at the bottom, I have scheduled in for 2021 and 2022 to do a $100,000 transfer into your capital improvements fund, your stormwater capital improvements fund. So that just continues to build. But then if you go on down a little bit, it says unencumbered cash balance December 31st. There will still be $131,000 left in there. And so you could whittle that down even further to about, so you would almost have $200,000 that you could put into that stormwater capital improvements fund every year because we're generating enough money. Does that make sense?
I have to look at the numbers and see which. Kind of.
Okay.
What sheet are we looking at, Susan?
It says stormwater at the top, right about here.
When you said we could whittle, I'm sorry. No, the whittle down part threw me off. We're going to whittle down what?
Cash balance. So your unencumbered cash balance as of December 31st is $131,000
Right.
for 2021.
Yeah.
That a 3 months cash reserve really would need to be. Let me get to my numbers here. 59.
So a fourth of that
Would be
total.
about $34,000. So really, you could almost move another $100,000. So you could do 200. But what I would have to do is do a budget amendment for 2021 to allow for that transfer.
And if we don't transfer it,
It just stays in this fund. Yeah.
I'm sorry, the transfer goes where?
To capital improvements, stormwater capital reserves.
Okay, I got you.
That's kind of our project fund that we use.
So you're adding to this $100,000 that's there,
Mm-hmm.
not taking it and transferring it someplace
No.
else? Okay.
So I would add another 100,000 there, and so then your cash balance would be 31,000 at the end of the year.
Mhm.
And so then that changes all your numbers going, forward. And so next year you would end up with $58,000 as a cash carryover. And that's with the 3% increase that I'm showing. Now, if we wanted to get very, very much detailed, because that's just a 3% on what our revenues are normally generating, we could go look at meter sizes and change the structure and all that. Or, sorry, the impervious area and change the structure. But I didn't go that far.
You have any idea how long you think a study would take for
that.
perimeter?
I don't know. I guess we would ask Earl's Engineering to do it. No?
I would think we'd have to hire an outside entity. Or is that something we just do over a long period of time?
For GIS of, if you had a map to do the impervious area.
Oh, yeah. I thought you were talking about the meter sizes.
No.
Yeah, he switched gears.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Sorry, I
this
switched it up.
is, is that what you're asking?
Yes,
Impervious
yes, yes,
area?
yes. Yeah. Is that something you guys do? Or
Oh, that's something we can do. That's not
any
difficult.
idea
It
on
just takes time.
any idea on estimate time frame or cost?
Not without looking at it to get some idea. I mean, I assume residential, it depends what we have to do. If we're just doing commercial areas and not residential, that cuts down considerably what we need to do. And then we just need to look at a map and kind of come up with an idea. How many there are.
Susan, I don't know if you can say
It's
off
not
the top
going
of
to
your
take
head.
that terrible much.
Do you think most of the discrepancies are in the non-residential?
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
Well, that's what I assume too.
Yeah, I mean, because they're pretty standard lot sizes.
Yeah. And I think over the years, it's been lost in translation with new hires and people not understanding what they're actually doing when a brand new business comes on, because that's where we probably lost the history. And so, but I can identify those pretty easily because I can break it down by residential, commercial, government, to get an idea.
The appraiser doesn't have those dimensions anyplace.
That I don't know.
The appraisal has the size of the lot. And if the entire lot is covered, that takes care of it, most of them.
We'll just assume it is.
Well, okay.
So you want me to make that a priority for this year to do an audit of that?
I think
Would you
in
recommend?
this conversation, it makes sense.
Makes sense. Okay, I can look into that.
So I'd rather see an audit before an increase. So, yeah.
I would agree with
Would
that.
you agree with the 3%? Maybe
In the
as an option.
stormwater?
Maybe not.
Maybe Pete's listening, so. What do you want, 20%?
Well, the 3%, like I say, 3% is not gonna get us very far.
No, it won't. But it's get you started on something, and then we look into things. We can bring you the projects and look at what it's gonna take to do those projects.
It's only for a year, right?
That's correct. I mean,
So, I mean-
that's right.
I think that gets us. I think we need to blow the money we have in there, and then reassess next year.
Well, yeah. Well,
Huh?
I like that verbiage.
Yeah.
Use it. You know what I meant.
Wants a new car.
Not run. Have I been known to just spend money frivolously, Michael? I think you know what I'm talking about. We need to run through that. Yes, we need to spend that money wisely and then come back next year and reassess. That sounds like something I'd say. Let's get it done.
Let's move to water, which is even worse. Look, top, you see the water fund. I don't know if I should have made copies of your ordinance, but your ordinance basically, if you at the same time pull this sheet along with this one, so you have both of them out. And the reason I want you to do that is this shows water rates today and what we're looking at. This, of course, is the same thing we've been looking at.
Could you show that second one again?
Yeah, that's one.
That's the one, correct. The one
That's
with the
one.
green.
And then
And then the one that says the water fund at the top. as you look at the,
You just made like a PowerPoint of this.
I could have. I thought I actually have everything with me that we could have put it on the TV, but the, as you look at this one, basically what I want you to see is the way your water rates are set up right now. Your water rates are set up that it's $12.92 right now from 0 to 1,500 gallons.
It's actually 13.17,
Okay.
but that's
I
neither here
didn't,
nor there.
I didn't have the right number. I screwed it up. Anyway, nevertheless, then from 15 to 36,000, you pay $603 per 750 gallons. And then it changes again. Somehow that didn't get on that sheet, but it's 36 to 75,000 is the next one actually, and that drops down to 540 per 750 gallons, and the next one is over 75,000 gallons, and that you pay $3.88 per 750 gallons. So the way your ordinance is written right now, you actually, the more water you use, the less you pay, and that's set up
Per
all
gallon.
over. That's the old way of doing it. Nowadays, that's not the way we do it. It's paid, normally it's just X number of dollars per, in your case, 750 gallons. Past your 750 or 1,500 gallons that you use now for what I'll call the base rate. And so what most cities do today is your base rate becomes what they call a meter charge. And your meter charge is based on the size of your meter. Normally 5/8, 3/4, and 1 inch are all considered the same meter. I mean, it's the same size. It's most people anymore are putting in 1 inch meters. The old meters were 5/8 and 3/4, and now everybody, new development, we all use 1 inch. I mean, that's what we do, 1 inch lines, 1 inch meters. So those three I put under the same category, which you see 5/8, it should say 2 1 inch, it says or. Then you got 1.5 inch meters, 2 inch meters, 3 inch meters, and 4 inch meters. And there's a rate for each of those meters. That's your base rate for those. Currently, your base rate is 1 set no matter what size meter you have. And then after that, it's just set at X number of dollars per gallon above 1501 or 1500. 1501 and on is so much per 750 gallons. So residential really doesn't affect too much.
Do you have any idea of average gallons?
That's what we're trying to work on. But with the stuff I got, she had to re-pull it because what I got, I couldn't put everything up. But so the residential though, when I ran through like the 1 inch meters, when we did the 603, it came across at the end of about a total increase of about 8% over the 12 months. Because I did a 12-month period and just ran them. What your bill would be based on these numbers, which mine's off because I wasn't using the 1317. So in fact, it would be less of an increase because they're actually paying a little bit more than what I had figured, but not a lot. So that, and so it came out to about that 8.5% increase for what I call residential, which was the 1 inch and below. The 2, 3, 4, they went up considerably, as much as 20%. Why? Because obviously they're paying $3.88, and now it goes to $6 for everything. So the people who are using over 75,000 gallons will obviously get a bigger bump and on down, simply because they were paying $3.88 to $5.40. And then we just took 603 across the board. So it does affect industry more than it does residential.
That's what I was thinking. Are we going to get people upset with us in the industrial park? And
You're going to get people upset because you're raising the rates,
But they're going to almost double.
Almost double for
Right.
industrial.
Industrial.
Yeah, and
Some of
that's,
the numbers that I was running. Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's a,
Double as far as, and this is down here like, doubling between 20 and 40 is difference between doubling 200 to 400.
What are you talking about?
What do you mean by double? Like,
They're
Water bill.
individual month to month.
do you have any idea what average month to month on some of these would be? Is that what down here?
let's just use
Well,
like,
residentials, your average residential user uses about 3,400 gallons of water. That's kind of our average. And we get that every year for new residents, so we kind of have an idea. And we have to run those calculations.
I'm just thinking like someone like, let's say, just throwing a name out there, like, let's say Timken, when they have their belts, they got a lot of water usage. I'm sure they got a lot of water usage.
Yeah.
And they're already having pressure issues and everything else. And then we say, well, you know what? We're going to double your bill. How excited are they going to be about that?
Yeah, not very. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's true. They could. But then that's going to be less usage on, we're going to have to make that up.
I guess I don't even know what their water bill runs. I have no, and it.
I really don't want to talk about individual.
Yeah,
Well, not
that's-
theirs, but like, what would an average big company? You have any idea what a decent sized company runs?
It could be up to $2,000 a month. Yeah.
So now we're talking 4,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
That would be significant.
It's the least of all the utility bills.
Okay, so eyes from the outside world. How does that compare to people, other communities in our area or other communities that are attracting these industries?
As far as rates?
Yeah.
I mean, every city is different. I meant to bring Pittsburgh's. Pittsburgh right now has the same structure as you.
To step down.
We're in the process of changing theirs as well.
So how many do you see with the structure of ours with the step down?
That's basically anybody that hasn't redone their structure. Most people have redone them.
And do most
Since
people
then-
redo it like this, or do they modularly ease into it over the next 3 or 4 years, 5 years?
Last year when I did the budget, we talked about we did a 5% increase, and we talked at that time that we were going to have to do another 5% increase this year, just because of the debt service coming on for the river intake. That's almost a $6 million project.
So what if, and that's what we talked about, I think at the time, how do we do a 5% increase on not the base, but beyond?
We
That
did it across.
I know, but would that kind of be what we're trying to get at?
Yeah.
Because right now they're paying less. I mean, if we did a 5%,
If you do 5%, you're never going to get up.
Right. Yeah, you won't.
I mean, that's over the next 5 years, 6%, whatever. You're talking about,
If you're going to do it over 4 years, you're talking a 25% increase, 20% increase.
Yeah. Oh, I was
Right.
talking, if I go to here, this page, in order to handle, and I just,
Wait, figure that's not right.
no, you're fine, 20%. To do the projects that we have kind of outlined, plus what we've got scheduled in other funds, we would need a 20% increase in revenue. That's how I figured that, to give you some idea. So how we get there is the next question.
I'm sorry, we're going to need a 20% increase. Is that what you just said over something, over 5 years?
No.
No,
Over like
This
right
year.
now?
this year.
Okay.
To be able to do $400,000 worth of either debt service or projects
Uh-huh.
every year,
Right.
we would need to increase our revenue by 20%.
each year.
No, just this year. That's all. I didn't project out. I just did it for this year. And I think that would get us to the point that we could sustain, every year, but with a gradual 3% increase.
So how does that correlate to the numbers that Earls is bringing to the table? Of
Completely
changing
different.
Yeah, I know it
It's
does
completely different.
20%. What's the dollar amount on the 20%?
Well,
I guess you can look at.
yeah, it's only different in the approach, and the end result is
Right.
needs to be
Still
the
Right, if
same.
you did
So,
it for 4 years, you'd be looking at a 14% increase from the 3.88 to get it up to the 603.
550,000.
500 and 50,000. Okay. And then what does this change in our
Of course,
revenue?
in 4
Is the
years, it
question.
should be up to 678. So, there you go.
I'm sorry, yeah, I'm missing the 678 number, which is,
Well, that's basically, if
Off-
you're gonna
off
catch up,
2024, yeah.
then you gotta project where you're gonna be in 4 years,
right.
which is the 678. And, well, 4 years, I guess I'm off 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 690, I can't count. So the 698 minus the 388.
Can you give me your numbers again on the ones that didn't print out after the
It's
36?
to 75 and then over 75.
You know, you can do the same concept here, not that it would be popular, as you do in the sewer fund with just a
Base.
A
Beyond
base. Yeah, so like here's what we're going to charge you $5 extra in the water fund and $5 extra in the sewer fund.
And that's, I mean, that's
Per month.
basically what we're working at here. And that's, instead of just doing all next year,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know about just stepping it up over the next.
You know, you do
But
it.
I know he has a 3% increase built in anyways every year, so that's what makes it hard to
Yeah.
step it up.
Yeah. But then that would make them, you know, a residential customer would pay about $12 more a month for water and sewer if you did something like that.
Only?
Mm-hmm. If you did $5 as a maintenance, kind of like here's what we need. We need $5 for infrastructure repairs in both funds. It's not going to generate as much, but it would generate quicker. Now,
Because that's still based off the 3,200 meters.
Right.
So 150.
right? About 150,000, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a different approach. You know, we really kind of brainstormed on because I can see where there's some value to your industry also. And maybe you do a 3-step approach. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we could break it up so that each piece adds a different percentage until they all catch up to each other.
Yeah.
And then,
Yeah, which would
Goes
be
back
easy. I
to
mean,
where-
over 10 years, I mean, you
Yes.
just figure the percentage, just step it down, and your last one will be 3%.
yeah, but what I'm saying is your percent increase for the, for each phase that you have here is gonna be different.
Right.
So your percent increase for the 1,500 to 36 to 75 and over 75, those percentages are gonna be different, so that in 5 years, everybody's paying the same per gallon.
Yeah.
And then if you do the first one at 3%, then the other's obviously gonna be higher until you all catch up after 5 years, and then you switch it to where it's the same.
Yeah.
Mhm. And I do like that the larger meters cost a little bit more, because when we go to change out a meter, it sure isn't.
Those are expensive.
They're expensive, $2,000-3,000 for a meter. I mean, you know, so I do think we need to charge a little bit heavier based on the size of the meter.
This
Meters themselves are $2,000 or $3,000.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh yeah, they're expensive. Is there a compound meter?
yeah. Now we don't have a lot of people that have them. There's not, you know, but
So they're not the ones that I'm looking at now when I stick my head in there with the digital.
probably
Something
not.
different.
Not if you're looking at a residential.
Okay.
So Susan, back me up. Because I was looking, you're talking about $5 increase
I'm just talking
in
about
all the funds.
no water and sewer.
Okay, but does that make a difference if we're no longer transferring money between funds in terms of how do we have to think about it more individually or each fund separately in terms of its
Yeah, I'll have to
applied
go back
increase?
and recalculate everything depending on how we structure this, because all it's going to do, like Josh said, we should really be saying, okay, what do we need to fund our projects? And we can't ever do that because we don't have enough revenue coming in. I just have to say, hey, this is what's left over at the end of the year.
Right.
And so to get us there, we have to make some kind of some real strong decisions on what is it that we are trying to accomplish. And I think we all know our infrastructure needs to be addressed.
Brandy, to answer I don't know if this kind of answers your question, but with Susan talking about a 5% or $5 base fee charge in sewer and water, I did a calculation or worked with her. She helped me. Instead of doing that $10 base fee charge that is shown here in the pink line for the sewer that we talked about, I calculated it for $6. And what
$6 for sewer.
Okay. So a $6 base charge instead of that $10. And what it would end up changing the numbers is instead of having a 3-month reserve, we would have a 2-month reserve. So when I said that to Susan, she said we would just have to adjust our spending, our budgeted dollars in those, but it still doesn't change our ability to be capable of funding projects or funding, what it means to be able to pay those loans. So if we went with a $5, I feel like we need to look at each individual utility, but we need to look at a whole as to how this is going to affect each household. And looking at a stair-step effect, I think on the sewer, mainly affecting our industry, we have to be smart about how we do this to where we're not.
Yeah, the water affecting the industry. I agree, but yeah, it's fine with me. I just want to be clear though that if we need to have a differential in the amount of increases because of the way that we have to use each fund as a silo, and so we just need to be aware of that.
And so that is built into the water fund. So I would have to go back and say, okay, what would I need? What kind of an increase would we need in charges for services? And so I think there's kind of like a mixture going on here that you'd have to do, maybe that $5 fee for water, $5 fee for sewer, and look at a gradual increase, kind of like what we talked about, stair-stepping these so that they get to the same point to get you to the number that you need to get to.
Yeah. I think that I don't know. I think that's a more
rather than doing it all at once.
Yeah, that's a less aggressive approach because I think a 3% increase across all of our funds and a $10 or base charge in another. I mean, I don't think that I could sleep at night. You know what I mean? Because we do. I mean,
that's why I
looking
say
at
you gotta look at.
Residential.
I was looking at individual.
Absolutely.
And so, but you guys
pulling
have to
it
look
together.
Yeah.
You have to make it make sense for the long term, but being able to increase it to where over time to where it does even out for the long term.
And I think in all of them, stair stepping is probably reasonable. It's just
how to do that.
It comes down to doing projects and being able to what can we do in a time. But at the same time, we haven't been doing them, so we can't just flip the socks and start doing everything either. That's not realistic either.
So really, I don't know. At this point, I feel like we do kind of need to know exactly what are our more forefront projects, right? And dollar estimate so that we know how we want to structure and what are we capable of doing. If we're going out, we're apparently not going to be doing all of this work ourselves. So we're going to need to have an idea of what that cost is going to be over the next 2 or 3 years to figure out what those increases
right.
Right,
and
be.
I mean, well, that's one thing that you'd like to have is like a 5-year, 10-year projection of projects. And we really don't have that. We've got some of it for Michael on the wastewater, but really on anything on the water. The guys are just now looking at that to put something together. You have the wastewater report that you can go off of. So yes, we can put that together. By the time you do budget, probably not. Because basically you've got to have the budget done in a month. So this gives you an idea of how you might do it and what kind of stair steps, and we can redo these to get you a little better deal. But you have water projects out there too that are easily going to be $5-6 million bucks. But we're going to try and put some of that together for you. But the problem is you got to make decisions quicker than that, unfortunately, in order to get the budget by the time you put it on paper and get it approved.
Well, I think what you've presented is great. I think we've brought in, this day of reckoning has come, and this is our day of reckoning. And we all realize that we have these projects that have to be done if we're going to survive. And my thoughts are is that we brought expertise into the table with Earl's Engineering, and that's a big step for the city. That's a big step for us. That helps us to, know what we're talking about. And I like this. I think what we're doing is just exactly what we need to be doing. And I think that we've been lax in doing this over the years. And I just really think that where we're headed is in the right direction here.
Well, and I know Susan and I need to
Yeah.
find time that we can sit down together for
Yeah,
3-4 hours.
Yeah, I'm agreeing
and,
totally.
and go through these things better.
Yeah.
But we just needed to get it presented to you.
Yeah. Well, here again, we've got, you realize what we need to do. In the past, it's just been, it's been suppositions. Here, we know what we got to do, and we know what it's going to cost us.
How did they?
I just want to, Pete, I feel like these same conversations happened last year during budget time. And maybe you're talking about past administration, but I do feel like that this has been brought to the table multiple times. It just hasn't been maybe the commission's decision to go that direction.
Yeah.
So I'm a little bit offended by your comment.
Well, no, I didn't. No, I don't mean that. I think that what we brought is some support for the commission.
Yeah.
To say yes, this is what we need to do.
Yeah.
And I'm not, I'm not
Yeah.
running you down at all.
Okay.
I think you've done a great job, and I think you and Earl, you and Peter have really made a good presentation.
Yeah.
The last thing I have is, this is just a copy of some ordinances. It happens to be Ulysses and Liberal. I grabbed Pittsburgh, but somehow I didn't get it in here. But this shows you what they did. We did this for them some years ago. And that's where we broke it down by meter. And then in Liberals, it shows, mainly I wanted to show you what they put in, which says basically that it's automatic 3% or cost of living raise automatically. And so that you're not fighting every single year for that 3%.
So Ulysses,
that's what they put in.
Ulysses does the opposite of what we do. They charge actually more per gallon the more you use.
That's correct. They actually raised it.
Yeah.
For the more water you use, the more it costs.
Oh, it makes
You
sense
also have
because-
to understand out
Does it?
there,
Well, it
water
doesn't.
is very difficult to
Yeah, I
get.
kind of see it because you would think the more usage, the pipes wear out quick. Maybe not. I mean,
But especially out west, water is very.
and this is go back to the
Costly.
last thing before I forget, Susan. The water intake. How did the previous commissions plan on paying for that?
It was never calculated in, to be quite honest. And
That is
so
a huge payment.
I know, and that's why I discussed it last year. Is for the next 2 years, we definitely have to do a 5% no matter what, just to
Pay for that.
cover that. So, and that bond actually is supposed to be set, or that temporary note is supposed to be set to
Next year.
2022.
Yeah. And it goes from 70,000 to 330,000.
Yes, just like that.
Yeah.
Can I, are we, do we do this? Do we cover what we need to cover? Because I've got questions that are kind of
Ask.
related to this in some way.
Yep.
That we never have talked about, and I don't understand it, so you all can give me directions. But we've never talked about grants and how much reserve we need in order to be positioned in order to apply effectively for those if they're still out there and if they can be had. The other thing, complete speculation, is the infrastructure plan that's coming hopefully down from the feds that we may be able to take advantage of in some way. And are we positioned to do that and to take advantage of it?
Yes, I mean, that infrastructure plan, however that comes out, that's a good thing of having a 5-year and 10-year plan out there.
Yeah.
Because then you're ready to jump in with projects. No, you're never going to have shovel-ready projects. I mean, that's not realistic. But as far as grants, unless your rates are over $55 on the average for residential, there is no grant out there.
Well, that answered then, my gosh, $55 a head.
Rural development is, I mean, they have, in KDH&E funds, they have what they call forgiveness, loan forgiveness, but it doesn't happen very often, and usually it's on large, like wastewater treatment plants and water treatment plants. They're 30, 40 million. On these kind of loans, no. Rural development, the disadvantage of rural development is it sticks it out there 40 years. The advantage is the payment's lower. But as far as grants, the only grant they have, they set what they call a minimum rate that you have to have. And currently, I think it's somewhere between $54 and $56 per water bill, per sewer bill, on the average for residential, before any kind of grant will even be considered.
So $55 is a total bill or per water?
For the water.
For the water.
Just the water portion or just the sewer portion, if you look, depending what you're looking at.
And we actually are applying for a CDBG grant. There's certain steps that you have to take to even apply, and we are in the initial stages of that.
Yeah, CDBG is out there. There's 300 people apply, and they give 10.
Right.
I think what Randy said though, because that what could be given out is like 750 billion. I realize that's across the whole country, but the infrastructure plan coming down hopefully is a great opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Is that something you look at for?
Yes, obviously we've got a lot of cities, and so yes, we kind of keep track of that.
Are we your favorite city?
What it is. What if it's in like anything else the federal government does? They'll say, "Here's the money. We're coming up with exactly how you get to use it.
Right.
We'll let you know." You know, it's just like that money that you're getting now. It still hasn't decided how or what how you can use that. You know. It's got out there that it's for infrastructure, but then they're redefining the word infrastructure for us. So
We're going to blow it.
Need to be too late. But so my takeaway along with Pete's is it's a great conversation, but we also need to be looking forward with our most urgent, most needed projects, so that if it does become available, we could say, this is it, we're ready.
That's right. And that's what we are doing. Michael's kind of done a good job on the wastewater side. Yeah, but we really don't have anything on the water side, so that's what they're putting together. And that's what you were saying, Jeremy. We have 6 lines across the highway. 4 of them are closed. You know, that's not good.
Well, our projects, I know Pete's mentioned this before, our water sewer projects tie into our streets, so we know, hey, we need to do this street. We don't have that on our water book.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a good point. I mean, you don't want to go in there and do a brand new street, but don't fix the water or sewer under it. Not a good idea.
Staff talks among ourselves. When we know that there's a street project coming up, we say, okay, how are the water and sewer lines?
Like Horton Street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be great for you to bring forward, you guys, a plan to say this is what we see as the
Absolutely.
priorities.
And that's what we're trying to get to with staff.
Well, anytime by next Wednesday should be fine.
Okay. Okay. Next Wednesday, as in next after the next, or the second Tuesday of next month.
Yeah.
So just to kind of square up the budget stuff, my timeline is starting to really shrink.
Yes.
So I need to have some idea. We either need to have another budget work session to discuss all of these funds one more time, or we go ahead and do a hearing on the revenue neutral rate and exceed it, and it gives us a little bit more time to plan and put together some more plans till October. So, you know, it would kind of slow our budget process down where we can kind of extend it out and really talk through this and see what we want to do.
And what's the timeline if we don't, or if it's not?
I have to have the budget published by, the 24th. They'd have to go in the 24th paper.
Well, so the hearing doesn't change anything we have to do in terms of charging. It just gives us more options and frees us up.
Yeah.
It seems kind of foolish not to do that.
Yeah, the revenue neutral rate hearing. Yeah. And it also protects you later on down the road if assessed valuations change in any way. You know, I think that's the most important piece to kind of educate the community on is we're not planning on raising taxes. We just want some time to really.
When would our hearing be?
I would like to do it on that first meeting in August the 3rd.
And so that meeting, if we go to that meeting, just has to be about what?
The revenue neutral rate.
But I mean, what we just go over?
There's a resolution that has to be passed, and an actual hearing has to be
Open to the public.
Yeah.
To speak.
Yeah. And so we would just kind of talk about, you know, here's how the law has changed. Here's what we're battling. I mean, we're already battling it. We're trying to find ways to cut.
And it's, I mean, it's perfectly legal to say, you know, we probably don't plan on raising it, but we're gonna have this hearing just for, we can say that at the,
Yes. Yeah, your assessed valuation did go up, so, you know, you could talk about if we need those dollars for some unexpected expense. You know, we may need to exceed that. I mean, there's lots of conversations around it, and I can put some bulleted points together for the commission.
so how, now walk me through the process. If the five of us disagree on how the budget goes, how do you present that to us?
You go by what I want.
Besides, do you have a Randy?
We know now.
I mean, how do you go about presenting that? Which one do you present? How do you present it? I mean,
It's difficult, so I really need to present several different options for you guys to look at, and that means it's several different budgets put together. And so,
Doesn't sound like you do her.
No, that's a lot of work for her. Normally, her and him get together and come up with a budget, and they present it to you.
I know, and I'm just trying to speed that up. I'm trying to help that out because in case that doesn't fit the majority of the commissions.
philosophically, it would help to know what each commissioner would like to see happen with taxes. That helps us set the direction.
And it's in increases. And
Yeah, increases. Do you want to
Were you
decrease?
pointing to
Do you
me,
wanna-
Earl? Were you pointing to me when you said? Oh, okay.
You know, I could do the nice thing about the utilities is we can go ahead and set them. We could set them at the same rates that they're at and say, okay, we only have 100,000 for capital improvements. And then later on, if you decide, hey, we want to raise rates, then we can come back in and amend the budget. It's the levied funds that are the most important right now for us to get ironed out. So
every year, is Michael?
So
Budget's never fun.
So our budget hearing is the first week of August?
it will not be a budget hearing. It'll be a revenue neutral rate hearing.
So do we have to hold a budget hearing also?
No.
No.
They can be two separate
didn't-
times.
They can be or they have to be.
They can be. They could be on the same day.
Yeah.
You would have it before you do your budget hearing. So I could do it, come out of that hearing, and then go into the next hearing.
So is that something like next meeting you'd have to put on our agenda to say we want? Is that a resolution we have to pass at a meeting?
Yes. Yes. I'll have to get a copy of it from the league, just a basic one. I think the county is going to do the same thing on their side, but theirs is more driven because of cemeteries
So,
and things
And I
that are
realize it's
changing.
different funds, but with the money that's coming down and the stipulations, do you think that will affect our budget talk at all?
Not from a general fund perspective, because those dollars, you mean the ARPA funding?
Right.
ARPA funding is really more geared toward, right now, is geared towards your water and sewer infrastructure.
So would you suggest at some point in the near future having a budget work session over the ARPA? funds?
Yes. Yes, I would. I would.
The new funds, you have to realize that's in the year, September 30th.
Yeah, that's just weird.
So it all starts.
And I really, for that funding, I have to do a report in August that really kind of talks about what our plans are for that funding. So it probably wouldn't be bad for us to do a work session on that sooner rather than later, because that's just part of the reporting requirements. I mean, I can put no plans, but it'd be good for us to put something in there.
Yep.
I actually drew those funds down today, so they should be here within the next few days.
So what's your suggestion on the next meeting, budget meeting?
Today's the 15th. As long as I feel like we're kind of going the same page on the revenue neutral rate, then we could have it, Thursday next week. If Thursday doesn't work for everybody, we could do it on a Wednesday. We could do it. I don't know what works for everybody.
Thursday next week's Fort Scott Forward.
Oh, it is. That's right. Yeah, we talked about that.
Meetings on Tuesday and Wednesday?
Or we could do it before the Tuesday meeting? No? Okay.
Does Wednesday work for everyone? Randy, you have to check with the boss
Me?
next Wednesday.
Oh, next Wednesday, I can do it. I mean, as long as we do it in the evening. Is that what you're talking about?
Kevin might want it in the morning.
I always want to do it about 9 o'clock in the morning.
I need to talk to my golf buddy to see what he thinks.
The important thing.
Yeah.
Well, if it's like today,
I think
you don't need to
Wednesday.
worry about
Okay.
your golf buddy.
So at that meeting, do we just want to talk about levied funds, or do you want me to bring like a whole package and just say, hey, this is what?
Whatever you think we can handle,
Okay.
and you can handle from us.
I mean, I think having an inclusive conversation and then maybe more in depth about the levied funds,
Okay.
maybe.
So almost like
We always
the
find
budget.
something.
I probably won't give you all these detailed pages again. I will just give you the budget document to kind of save on some paper, and I'll try to do notes out to the side, kind of like what I've done, just to say, hey, here are the highlights. Would that help?
Next Wednesday.
One thing that
That's 5 or 6 or 6 work better for you.
6 would
Wednesday's
probably
fine.
Does 6 work better?
Wednesday's 5. That's fine.
Wednesday at 5,
6 would be fair.
6,
How about
5:30. Compromise. One thing I do want to ask is, do we think we will have any sale of property for 2022?
I would assume so.
2022?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because that's not built in. So that's something that could help the general fund budget.
And to
Unless we decide
Well-
we're going to put it all at the lake.
Well,
that's a discussion.
I'm gonna say that
Well, not only that, the first source building.
Sorry.
I'm not kidding. I'm
I mean, if you're just talking about the lake, yeah. But if you're talking about first source building, possibly this building, and to me, those are like ARPA funds. They're a one-time,
They are.
and so you can't really factor them into the budget too much.
Right. But if you have some capital projects that you
Yes.
needed to work towards, I think that's,
Or reduce loans.
At the lake.
Yeah. yeah. So a couple $100,000 just to,
I'm putting more in there.
Well, I think that'd be a safe number.
Yes.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd say 200,000 to 300,000 would be a safe number.
okay.
I mean, I'd rather be under than over. So.
All right. Moving forward, I don't know, probably if you have agenda items or anything, holler at me or Jeremy or Allie.
Oh, until Diane.
Yeah. So that would be the only other thing. Okay. So next Wednesday, 5:30, I'll try and have the entire budget workbook together, and we'll just kind of step through it quickly.
Are we really considering selling the police station and moving them into the basement of Memorial Hall?
No.
Wow.
Somebody, that was a rumor around town. I was just wondering.
No. Well, pretty sure Kevin's the one that said that at the last meeting.
Guess
Yeah,
who's getting
exactly.
pulled over when I leave here?
Exactly.
I don't know, but he's pulling his gun out.
Yeah. That's just a
Taser.
taser.
All right, you guys got anything else? Earl, Susan, Jeremy?
No.
Nope. All right.
Nope.
Good. Thank you. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
You don't need to adjourn the meeting?
Let me know if we need to
Oh.
go through any more. We can change any numbers we want.
Yeah. It just depends on how we want to approach it.
Have you walked through the police station yet?
No, I've been to the police station several times.